It's not just your imagination. Racism against Indians has definitely increased in the last few years. Whether it's YouTubers like this who deliberately roast Indians for views,
he's nastier than an Indian. And that is nasty.
Impossible.
or posts like this on Twitter, Reddit, and Instagram. There's been a noticeable rise in the negative stereotypes and blatant hate speech against Indians both online and in real life. But I'm not making this video to defend Indians or debunk the racists because that's just not a productive conversation. As an Indian, I don't want to play the victim card and get sympathy for my country. Instead, I want to systematically analyze why this is happening. What problem do foreigners, especially Westerners, have with Indians? Why is this happening now in the current economic climate? Is it just that India is poor and dirty, or is there a deeper socio-economic reason behind all of this? I'm going to break down my argument into 3 parts: the historical origins of this racism, the problem with the global economy today, and the effect of the internet on people's opinion of India. And I'm already going to tell you, while the racists can absolutely go suck it, we Indians aren't perfect either. We're a country famous for its corruption, lack of infrastructure, repression of women, and a still prevalent caste system. But every country has problems, and India is far from the only poor country in the world. So the question is, why are Indians getting all this hate? Now, I could just sit here and tell you that all of India's problems started with being colonized by the British, but that doesn't really paint the whole picture. Lots of other countries have been colonized. USA, Canada, Australia. All of these are rich countries that were once European colonies. But why did these countries get wealthy after being colonized, but India, Pakistan, and so many countries in South America and Africa lose all their wealth to colonialism? I specifically want to address this question because this American travel vlogger mentioned it.
And all you people saying, oh, India was a colony, oh, it's not their fault. You know where else was a colony? The United States of America. So suck on that.
That's a good point actually. I wonder if it maybe has something to do with the fact that the British colonizers committed a systematic genocide of the Native Americans? Did you seriously forget that happened? We Indians are still the native population here, but the original population of North America weren't white-skinned blonde dudes who spoke English. They were a large and complex network of Native American tribes who were driven almost to extinction by British settlers who gave them smallpox and stole their land. They had it even worse than us. Okay, but that still doesn't answer the question of why did those countries get rich while we got poor? The answer lies in this study, which won the Nobel Prize for Economics in 2024, published by Darren Acemoglu, Simon Johnson, and James Robinson. They argue that the most important indicator of economic success is the quality of a country's institutions. The education system, financial institutions, trade networks, and everything else needed to maintain a strong economy. Before colonization, rich countries like India or Indonesia already had all these institutions. So if a foreign power wanted to colonize them, those institutions had to be destroyed. In India, the British did this by monopolizing India's trading connections, taking away land belonging to kingdoms and citizens, and forcing Indians to stop high-skill work like producing textiles and forcing them to do low-skill manual labor like farming cotton and indigo. Over time, it basically destroyed the massive economic framework Indians had spent centuries building, allowing the British to freely extract raw materials and resources at an extremely low cost. Meanwhile, in countries like the United States or Australia, the native populations didn't really have sophisticated urban societies or structured economies. So Europeans could just go there, settle on the ample free land available, and if the natives didn't like it, the Europeans had better weapons and technology to fight them off. These tribals were also isolated from the wider world, so they had no immunity to diseases like smallpox, which wiped out entire tribes from the face of the earth. Now, the Europeans could easily build new towns and ports, attracting even more Europeans to come and permanently settle the wide open land. Now they had the opportunity to set up brand new institutions just like the ones in Europe. That's the big difference. Europeans never wanted to settle permanently in Asia. They just wanted our free resources. They then used those resources to build big European-style cities in places like the US, Canada, and Australia. This is essentially why Asia became poor while the West got rich. Okay, but how is this even relevant to racism against Indians? Well, I believe that this is where it all started because this was the point when we as Indians began to feel ashamed of our own Indianness, of our culture, our language, our clothes, but especially our skin color. Now that Indians had lost the very backbone of our economy, our institutions, we essentially lost faith in the Indian way of life and began to crave the approval of the white man. Whether it's through discrimination or indoctrination, the British made us feel disgusted with ourselves. It became fashionable to wear Western clothing, study in British schools, and eat European food. Indian philosophy and knowledge was considered unscientific and barbaric in favor of Western ideologies, which were considered highly enlightened. Europeans felt it was the white man's burden to teach these uncultured heathens about their superior way of life. Indians who grew up under colonialism developed a deep-seated inferiority complex which persists even to this day. Think about it. Doesn't your family treat that one NRI cousin who lives abroad better than the ones who study and work in India? Don't people automatically look down on someone who speaks only their native language and doesn't know English? Even today, just watch how the average Indian treats a white foreigner versus anyone else, especially another Indian, and you'll see the difference. Despite all our efforts to shed our colonial past and re-establish our own identity as a nation, we still live in the shadow of our old overlords, and we've still not fully regained our self-respect. And Western countries know this. Despite claiming to be progressive, developed countries do have an air of condescension towards South Asia. They're all part of a highly exclusive hoity-toity club reserved for rich countries, and we're never going to be part of that. And because we're still a poor, economically backward country rife with crime and corruption, we continue to harbor a sense of inferiority. Western countries know how badly Indians want to go and settle there, so when they finally give us visas after a painfully long drawn and uncertain process, they still feel like they're doing us a favor. And we as Indians continue to reinforce that notion by constantly trying to go there. Now, I'm absolutely not blaming anyone who wants to study or live abroad. Obviously, Western countries have the best universities and job opportunities. There's no denying that. But the economic climate in those countries today is completely different from what it was even 10 years ago.
Cost of living crisis.
Cost of living.
Cost of living.
Cost of living.
Cost of living.
National housing crisis.
Housing crisis. Cost of living.
Western countries are having a housing meltdown and we're getting blamed for it. Let's take the example of Canada. Historically, Canada has been one of the most immigration-positive countries in the world. In a country this vast and empty, immigration was the only possible way to begin agriculture, set up industries, and build cities. Canada established one of the world's oldest immigration policies, selecting people on the basis of their skills and language capabilities. This meant that almost everyone arriving in the country had some kind of useful skill like farming, engineering, or business, and were either fluent in English or French. Basically, they had to be able to contribute to the Canadian economy in some meaningful way if they wanted in. Makes perfect sense, right? But after COVID, the Canadian government started allowing way more people into the country than ever before. Nearly 5 lakh immigrants in just 2023. Not only is that number insanely high, but Canada is also currently suffering a housing crisis. New homes aren't being built fast enough, and the cost of buying or renting has gone through the roof. And after all these new immigrants came in, Canadians have been struggling to survive. You probably guessed why I'm talking about this. Yeah, most of those immigrants are Indians. Now, this is not our fault. It's up to Canada to decide whether a candidate gets entry to the country or not. But they badly miscalculated how much housing they'd need and the impact of constantly adding millions of new people to a country with a population of just 40 million. The result is that all the locals hate immigrants, especially the biggest group, Indians.
They miscalculated the how much immigrants they want. They miscalculated how much housing they have, how much they could accommodate over here, and now they are blaming all it on us.
It's not just Canada though. The US, Europe, Australia, they're all facing a cost of living crisis and don't want any new people coming in. So now that they're struggling, who do they blame? Dirty Indians. Filthy Indians. It's become a lot more acceptable to spew the most hateful and racist comments against Indians, but nowhere is this more normalized than the internet. Real quick, if you're enjoying this video so far, it would really help me to appease the YouTube gods. If you like this video, subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon. It really helps me keep making high quality videos just for you. Alright, back to the video. On 1st September 2016, Mukesh Ambani got onto the stage at the Reliance Industries annual general meeting to make a historic announcement before a massive crowd of shareholders and press. There, he gave the world its first ever look at his company's brand new enterprise, Jio. For the last decade, telephone networks and especially mobile data services in India had a reputation for being slow, unreliable, and terribly expensive. A few companies had monopolized the internet service business, and the only thing that could shake them up was a bold move from a new player with deep pockets. Ambani was giving Indians a deal that seemed too good to be true. High-speed 4G services on a massive network at dirt cheap prices. The hungry market of 1.2 billion Indians had awoken to the possibility of connecting to the internet for the first time, which was now becoming way more accessible through affordable smartphones. It was the perfect storm. In 2016, around 16% of Indians had access to the internet. The very next year, that number had gone up to 24%. Today, just 8 years after the launch of Jio, over 52% of Indians, more than twice the population of the United States, are active internet users. But so many people suddenly being able to go on Facebook or YouTube is like, well, entering a new country where you don't know the laws of the language. While people in the West had years to get used to social interaction over the web, Indians were suddenly experiencing it for the first time. Combine that with the fact that India is still really conservative while the internet is mostly open, and things got awkward. Indian men who didn't know how to behave online started to send weird or creepy messages to women or comment under their photos on Instagram. They tried to hit on women on LinkedIn. It was just really weird, and Indians, mostly Indian men, got a terrible reputation for sexual harassment. Even though this has improved a lot in recent years, our reputation for being creepy has never really gone away. But then there's perhaps an even more serious problem: online scams.
Ma'am, why did you do this? Why did you do this? Ma'am, why did you redeem?
Ever since India began globalizing in the 90s, we took major advantage of the fact that we're a country that can speak English but doesn't demand high wages. Outsourcing contracts, mainly from American companies, gave millions of educated Indians all kinds of job opportunities in IT. One of those jobs was customer support. Now when an American called up IT support, they were probably talking to someone sitting in a call center somewhere like Bangalore, Hyderabad or Mumbai. Of course, Indians quickly figured out that a lot of the people they talked to were elderly or unfamiliar with technology and would blindly listen to whatever they said. And that's how the call center scam industry was born.
Hold on, let me go ahead and do the next card for you then, Steve.
Are you bad? Are you mad? Why are you redeeming cards?
Like I said, Indians are not totally innocent either. In 2022 alone, call center scammers stole over $10 billion just from people in the US, where most of the victims were senior citizens. Many of these people lost their life savings to these criminals. Now, it's not all bad. In the last decade, India has emerged as one of the most promising developing economies in the world. Our GDP has been growing faster than any other country in the top 10 nations, and companies are investing heavily in India for IT services, manufacturing, and retail. No other developing nation has a successful space program or produces as many skilled workers in fields like medicine and engineering. Western nations see all this as a threat, since we're also the world's most populous country, and there's no doubt that this has influenced people's negative sentiments about India. Just think about it. 1 or 2 decades ago, the whole internet was ganging up the same way against China. Of course, we're still far from achieving China's level of success, let alone the US, but it's a step in the right direction. Wherever we Indians have gone in the world, from the US to the Gulf countries to Southeast Asia, we've been one of, if not the most successful minority group. No one can deny that. Ultimately, we can't control how people behave towards us, and that's fine. But if we do a little bit of self-reflection and understand why things are the way they are, maybe that'll give us the confidence to look the other way and keep doing what we're doing. Unless you're a scammer, in which case, please stop. You are such an asshole for scamming old people. Get a real job. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel and click the bell icon. And leave me a comment letting me know what you think about racism against Indians. I'm Manish and I'll see you in the next one.